Musa. What are we going to see there? We are going to see a complex of churches. Now, the first question, are we sure it is the place where Moses have died? We're more or less sure about the area in general. Now, if you read the Old Testament, Moses have died at the Moabite heights in the village of Nebo. Okay? Now, we are going to the Moabite heights and we are going to the village of Nebo. Okay? Now, are we sure of the exact place? We're not 100%. Nobody knows exactly where Moses have been buried. Don't believe anybody telling you that we do know where he have been buried. Anyway, so we're going there. There is a complex of churches that we're going to visit. What do I mean a complex? Multiple churches in the same place. I'm going to show you these multiple churches, and we're going to start talking about the story of mosaics. Have you ever seen mosaics other than, in Jordan? You already saw them, you already took some pictures of them. Have you ever seen mosaics somewhere else? No?
Rome.
In Rome, definitely. Tunisia, some places in the Middle East. Now here, the story of mosaics started when the people started changing them from just being a floor with colors and designs, triangles, squares, into something more or less like documentation. Now, like the one you showed me, I told you this is the story of the kings, and on the other side it's the story of the animals that used to be there, and beside the kings it's telling you the professions of that area at that time. So when we realized that mosaics can stay for hundreds of years, we started, doing the art of mosaic. What is the art of mosaic? Is telling the story of the people, telling the story of the place, conveying a message of what used to happen to the generations that is going to be after us. Now, I think we started talking about something related to the early Christians, right? That they have preserved the religion that you're looking at. This region in the world, not just Jordan, the whole area, is the reason why Christianity is still existing, and this is not exaggeration. For the first 313 years, Christianity were forbidden after Jesus Christ. You know this? If you were a Christian, this is a felony at that time. You couldn't reveal your Christianity until 313. This is when Mom Helen convinced her son Constantine to let the Christians practice their Christianity. And this is when we started building the churches. Christianity started taking another form. Even, we started, publicly, talking about to talk about the new religion. And something else what happened at that period? This is when we started gathering and writing the Bible. By the 4th century, 5th century, and the end of it at the beginning of the 6th century, this is where we made, I don't know the English term of it, but we call it in our language, the Christian faith promise. We all believe in one God, God creator of all, and His Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. I don't know if you are following me up for the people who know this. We made this and we became the Chalcedonian Christians. At that time, we already, finished the discussions whether Jesus Christ is the Son of God, or is He the God, is He a human, is He a God and a human. We already finished all of these philosophical kind of discussions about the religion. Why am I saying this? Because all of this area was the backfield of all of these discussions and things. So early Christians here, they needed to make clues. We talked about the fish, right? So what happened? You enter to a house, and at the mosaic you will see a fish, yet we are miles away from the sea. So the fish sign is just to tell you, the visitor, that I'm Christian without saying that. And many of the other signs, the lamb, for instance, is a sign for Jesus. Do you remember the lost lamb, where God left all of the lambs and He went just to search for the one that is lost? Do you know this story?
Yes.
Too much religion? No, but it is just stories about the culture of the people here. The other thing, for instance, the wheat grain. The wheat grain is a symbol of Jesus. Grapes, they are a symbol of Jesus Christ. So when you go to a house and you would see these kind of things all over, he is a Christian. And at that time, he couldn't say that. One of the oldest, but we are not really considering them as churches because that was individual. One of the oldest prayer places for Christians ever is in a place to my left there, about almost 80 kilometers. That place called Finan. Finan is a copper mining mountains, one of the oldest. And that was a sentence when people know that you are a Christian, they used to cripple them from the ankles down there and send them for what you call them lifetime sentence of hard labor. So you enter to the mine and never exit until you are a dead body. So inside you have all of the signs of the crosses where those people used to pray. The oldest mud church ever in the world is here. The cave churches are here. The catacombs, which is prayer places, are here as well. So those people, they were practicing and they maintained to really preserve Christianity until they were permitted to do so. So what are we going to see in Mount Nebo? We are going to see one of 5 big monasteries that used to be there on the path of pilgrims that used to go to do their pilgrimage, Christian pilgrimage, to visit the Holy Land. So that's why we always say, welcome to the Holy Land. You're part, this area that you're in is really a big part of the Holy Land, not just Jerusalem, not just Bethlehem. So Mount Nebo and the baptism site and all of this area used just to be part of it. So from what you know today as Syria until the borders of Turkey. And this is what we're going to see after finishing Mount Nebo and do the visit for the mosaic. This is what we're going to visit. You're going to visit the St. George Church. Do you remember what is the most important thing about this church? My church. It's my family church, guys. I was promoting it the whole time. So you're going to visit my family church, and inside this church is the oldest pilgrimage map ever, and the oldest map ever for Palestine, specifically Jerusalem. And you're going to see this. What was the purpose of it? Exactly like the map that we sat in front when we were in Petra. You're here, this is the distance, this is what you can do. And that was definitely the purpose of it. And you're going to see, we're going to be walking to the St. George and come back to where we're having the beautiful lunch of today. The thing is, while we're walking in this small distance of almost less than kilometer for sure, you're going to be passing by 8 churches. In the gated city of Madaba, there used to be 28 between churches, cathedrals and chapel, and that is not normal. It's like when we go to Mount Nebo, you're going to be around 6 monasteries, which is not normal. Do you know the difference between a monastery and a church?
The monastery for the monks, or
and could be a hospital and could be a school beside the church, beside it. The monastery is something to serve a community or to serve people coming to that side. Christians are non-Christians generally. But the prayer place, the church, is just a prayer place, and sometimes there is a residence to the father that is serving the church. So the monastery is something that is built to serve a number of people. And to have 6 monasteries beside each other, it is an indication that this area that we're going to go to was an attraction point for the Christians and non-Christians at that time. Did I bore you already?
No.
Are you sure? But today you're giving me the poker faces. I'm not joking. All of you, and you're doing a very good job.
but it seems like if they had places like that where the Christians gathered, then it'd be easy for Romans or whoever was persecuting them to come in.
Yeah. But we're talking now where they have started building these, the post 313.
Oh,
Where they quit.
where it was
Now,
acceptable.
before that, the oldest churches worldwide before that, the oldest from the 2nd century and the 3rd century, they are churches that was under the ground. That's why, you know the concept of catacombs, right?
Yeah.
So the catacombs mainly were prayer places under the ground. They didn't show them. That's why, do you know what is the most famous design of a church? The basilica. And the basilica initially is a temple. Because at a certain period of time, those Christians who was praying in the temple, for their Christianity, they didn't change anything in the temple to become a church. Later on, they added the altar and they added the minarets. But generally, the first design of it continued to be a temple, and they continued praying there. They didn't alter the temple, but they really, maneuvered, customized the temple to be a Christian prayer place. That is the design that we know today as the basilica design, which is the majority of the churches generally, I think, which is, the aisles and the columns and the altar and the side serving rooms. It is the typical design of a church, and that is the basilica that used to be a temple before becoming a church. So they were hiding. Whatever above the ground was not really seen as a Christian thing until 313. After that, we started building the churches. And by the way, in our region, in our area, like in Madaba, the churches is just beside each other for one simple reason. Each and every family had to build her church because they were really praying undercover. And who was the father? He was part of the family or one of the family. And when they said, build your church, he built a church. He built his church. So that was not, a community. It was just doing it individually. That's why in a small town you have a huge number of churches. That sometimes it's not logical. We're talking Byzantine period. Yeah? Other questions?
Came up with the idea of AD and BC and the
These are yeah, you're right. Part of them is the church. Now, who came up with the AD, BC, Generally, the calendar that we know, we used to do the calendar that is the astrological wise, the moon calendar, then the sun calendar. Now we're going to the sun calendar. That was invented or just, adapted by the Romans. Then there is a person whose name is Julius. I don't know if you're really familiar. Julius is the calendar that we know today, with a small twist later on by a person called Gregorian. Now, the calendar that we are going on is the Gregorian calendar. Mr. Gregorian, he was a father or a patriarch, I think. He discovered that there is a delay, this kind of, in February, every 4 months, it's not 28 days, it's 29 days. The one who discovered this delay, this thing, is the Father Gregorian. Gregorian, he really, do you know how do we know the Easter? When the equilibrium happens between the number of the hours of the light and the hours of the day, he really discovered that it's not happening at the 21st of March. So why is it so? He went to the scientists and they told him that the year is not 365, there is a kind of delay, and they started counting. And when he counted at that time, from the birth of Jesus until he found that there is some 15 days that needs to be compensated. That's why at the year, it's in the 16th century, I think 1580 something. At that year, he deleted 15 days, and this is when the Eastern and the Western calendar, when it comes to the Christmas and the Easter and them happened. And this is when they adapted that the Christmas is not at the beginning of the year, not the 7th of January, go back 15 days, it's at the 25th of December. History. So, who adapted this? The church. Why? Just to have, at that time, at the Julius time, they said, why shall we go back to when Rome was established? Our calendar should be when Jesus Christ was born. And the BC AD they started adapting it as a church, generally speaking. Now when they found the difference, that was Gregorian, and what we are working on today is the Gregorian calendar. Do I make any sense?
Yes.
Did I answer the question, or was that too much?
Yeah, and so the Jews and the Muslims, they use that same calendar.
Yeah, they use that.
And they don't.
But they have their own calendar. Everyone is using the Gregorian calendar, but the Chinese have their own calendar. The Jews have their own calendar. The Muslims have their own calendar, the Hijri. Okay, the Durzis have their own calendar. Every single kind of nation have a certain kind of reference when it comes to the time, the date, and also their own of, I would say, cultural, religious, whatsoever, ceremonies. But the thing is, the Gregorian calendar is the international calendar of today. So if I tell you the Hijri, the Hijri thing is the Islamic calendar. If I tell you today it's the 31st of Sha'ban, what you're not going to understand. Or if I tell you it's the month of the monkey and it's the day of the, you're not going to understand. But there are other people and nations that use other calendars that, okay? But the one that everyone does is the Gregorian. Sorry for too much. I told you, don't ask me things and expect